Are we ready? Good morning and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us here in Westminster Hall and also online. My name is Salah Saeed. I'm the Chief Executive of the Disasters Emergency Committee, the DEC. I'm joined today in the room by Andrew Morley, President and CEO of World Vision International. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you. Bethan Lewis, Head of Disaster Risk Management at Plan International. Welcome, Bethan. And via Zoom, we will hear from Titania Sorokin, who's the Country Director at Help Age International in Moldova, part of the Age International family, which is also a member of the DEC. And also on Zoom, Oleni Stokoz from the Ukrainian Red Cross, supported by also DEC member, the British Red Cross. There will be an opportunity to ask questions towards the end, anybody you've heard from today, and also to arrange one-to-one interviews if you like. Apologies. Today, the DEC is launching the Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal for people fleeing the Ukraine crisis and the conflict there. The DEC brings together the 15 leading UK aid agencies at a time of major international overseas disasters to respond swiftly, raise significant funds, and to respond to the aid effort. Many of us would have never envisaged launching a humanitarian appeal in the heart of Europe in 2022. Tragically, that's exactly where we find ourselves today. The last time the DEC launched an appeal in Europe was over 20 years ago for Kosovo. At that time, we thought never again. Sadly, we were wrong. The conflict is now 1 week old, with 1 million people who have already crossed the Ukrainian border into neighboring countries, leaving many people behind. Most of the people fleeing are women and children, forced to abandon their homes and their loved ones to find sanctuary in neighboring countries. There are reports of long queues on the border of up to 60 hours in freezing conditions. Some will have friends and families whom to stay with. The vast majority will have no one and nowhere. We know civilians and children have been killed, with many more injured. And sadly, that number will continue to rise. Many of us will have watched in horror the scenes unfolding and feel powerless, but wanting also, of course, to help. Now we can all do something to help and make a real difference. Our member charities and their local partners, side by side with local responders, Ukrainians and those on the border from neighboring countries, are already supporting and reaching out generously. By donating to the DEC Ukraine Humanitarian Appeal, you will be helping people in their hour of greatest need. Our message today is simple. Please donate, please fundraise if you can, and please pass on the message for those to donate as well. Our government has already pledged through UK aid match up to £20 million. That's for each pound the British public give, the UK government will match that pound, making your money go even further. We know the British public are incredibly generous and supportive. There is so much work to do to scale up the aid effort. This is our collective opportunity to help. Thank you. So let me turn to the panel. First, I'm delighted to have with us Oleni Stokoz, Deputy Director General of the Ukrainian Red Cross, which is supported by the British Red Cross. Oleni is speaking from Kyiv today. Welcome, Oleni. Thank you for joining us. Can you just give us an overview of the humanitarian situation on the ground? Alina, can you hear us? Alina, can you hear us? Apologies while we get the technology sorted. Okay, if we can't hear
Is it
Alina,
the question already?
Alina, please just give us a quick oversight of the humanitarian situation on the ground in Ukraine. Okay, I'm going to go to the next speaker whilst we try to sort out the link in Ukraine. Give it a moment. Alina, can you hear us?
We can speak now, as I understand, so I can start.
Yes, please, do start.
Because I suspect I'm not alone here. My name is Oleni Stokoz. I'm Deputy Director General at the Ukrainian Red Cross Society. And I'm joining this meeting from the Kyiv region, where very heavy shelling is taking place every second. And I'm sitting in my home attic because this is the only place where I have connection. And in 3 kilometers from me, a couple of minutes ago, we had a missile hitting civil houses, civil house. That's why I'm a bit scared. Well, so the situation is very dangerous here with me and in all the parts of Ukraine. The most difficult areas, the hottest spots in Ukraine are in the east. This is Donetsk and Lugansk region. This is Chernihiv, Kherson, Sumy, north and east. Now already south, Kherson and Odessa, and of course Kyiv. We have missile attacks against civilians everywhere in Ukraine, and many people in the regions that I mentioned have to stay in unprepared shelters almost 24 hours a day, because we have air raid sirens every 15 minutes, and people have to stay there without electricity, water, food, medicine, warm clothes, and other facilities. In parallel to that, other group of people is trying to leave their homes and to migrate either to safer places inside Ukraine or outside Ukraine. According to the recent statistics, almost 1 million of people have already left Ukraine, going to Western countries. Around 500,000 people can be called nowadays the internally displaced people. So these are the people who left their homes and trying to find the new city to live there. All of those people, groups of people, need our support, and everywhere across the country we see the violations of the international humanitarian law, which has become the norm rather than the exception. Despite all the challenges and despite the danger that we have, Ukrainian Red Cross has been carrying out the humanitarian response since the first hours of this armed conflict escalation in Ukraine. We operate in all the administrative regions of Ukraine. This is 24 regional offices. We are operating through 280 local offices. We have 500 staff and almost 4,000 people of volunteers who are engaged in our humanitarian mission. And every day we can see that the number of volunteers is growing. These are the people who want to support us in performing our humanitarian response. And I would like to use this opportunity and to thank our staff and volunteers across the country for their infinite dedication to our common goal. Speaking about what we have done so far for these 4 days, we are assessing needs across the country, and we can say that those needs, they change every hour. But the major activities we are now performing across Ukraine is that our emergency response teams are collaborating with the fire brigades and state emergency service of Ukraine in order to repair damaged civilian buildings and infrastructure. And through this process, we saved the lives of more than 100 people. In parallel to that, our emergency response teams are concentrated in the western border of Ukraine because that million of people crossing the border, they have to stay at the border for 2 days, 4 days, 3 days without basic facilities, and our teams organize shelters or safe places for mothers and children. We provide food kits, hygiene, water, warm clothes, and psychosocial support to people. Everywhere where it is possible, both online and offline, we disseminate, we train first aid skills to everybody, with everybody. Then we provide this first aid everywhere in Ukraine, and also first psychological aid, which is in high demand nowadays for obvious reasons. We try to evacuate the civilian population from the places with heavy shelling where it is possible, because unfortunately we do not have access everywhere, and this is not our mandate, but anyway we try to do this, risking our lives, of course. More than 30,000 people have already received humanitarian aid from our emergency stockpile. This is food, hygiene, medicine. With medicine, we have we have another challenge, because our medical institution, hospitals, they are cut off from medical supply. That is why we are doing our best in order to accumulate medicines they need and equip, send these medicines to the hospitals and to people who need it. We try to assist in organizing blood donation points, because full blood banks are needed nowadays everywhere. Also, mind risk education has become very timely nowadays. So we disseminate this knowledge, and we also raise awareness of people in international humanitarian law. And with our missing service and hotline, we try to connect people, connect families. So basically, this is what we are currently doing. We will be working further. Maybe the range of activities will expand, because the needs are changing every hour. Well, this is it. Thank you very much for attention.
Thank you, Olena, and thank you to your teams for your brave work on the ground in Kyiv. Olena, perhaps before you go, are you still there? Okay, I'm sorry, we seem to have lost Olena. Can I now just introduce Bethan Lewis, who's Head of Disaster Risk Management at our member charity, Plan International UK. Bethan, you've worked in the humanitarian field for 15 years. Perhaps you could just give us a quick overview of what you feel are the situation is the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, please.
Thanks, Salah. Unfortunately, the conflict in Ukraine is not new. There's 8 years of conflict that's been happening in the east already, where we estimate that 3.4 million people were already in need. Now, in this last week, millions more people are being impacted, and we've heard already that over 1 million people, including children, have fled into neighbouring countries. They've left behind homes, jobs, their belongings, and often just travelling with a small bag that they can bring. I wanted to talk a little bit specifically about the huge impact that this conflict is having on children, both those that are still living in Ukraine, but also those who have fled will have been very scared. They'll have witnessed violence, they may have been caught up in shelling or airstrikes, and those that have fled will be really worried about the people that they've left behind. Even after the conflict finishes, we know from working in other war zones that the impacts of conflict will stay, the memories of conflict will stay. Schools have closed, they've been damaged, and we've already seen that an estimated 350,000 refugee children are already not able to access school. We're particularly worried about children and adolescents, particularly girls, who might be on the move by themselves. They're particularly vulnerable. However, there is help waiting. DEC member agencies alongside local organisations are already responding. Plan International has emergency response teams who have travelled to Poland, Romania and Moldova, and with help from the DEC appeal, member agencies together with local organisations can scale up the support that's needed. So that's access to food, access to water, shelter, making sure that people have healthcare, and also ensuring that children are safe and that they're protected, and that they also have access to mental health care, both children and their families. Thanks, Sally.
Thank you, Bethan. And as I said, be an opportunity to ask some questions at the end of the conference. Can I now turn to our next speaker, Andrew Morley, who's President and CEO of World Vision International. Andrew, you've just returned from the region 2 days ago. Can you just share with us what you visited in Romania and I think close to the border on Moldova? Over to you.
Yes, thank you. Just this week I visited 2 border crossings, both in Ukraine. One, the border between Romania and Ukraine called Siret, and one, Albitsa, which is at the Moldova border. Thousands of refugees are streaming in, and they're taking up to 3 days to get across the border. World Vision work in crises in 100 countries across the world, and every one of them is heartbreaking. In the Ukraine, all the children I saw crossing the border were literally in tears. And when I looked into their eyes, I saw fear too. They were lost, they were scared, and when I close my eyes now, their tears are still there. These children don't know what the next few days or the next few hours mean to them. To make matters much worse, the sound of conflict can still be heard across the border at the crossings. This is a constant reminder of the horrors they are fleeing. World Vision has been on the ground in the region since 1977. Our staff were already present. We were responding when the first refugees crossed the border. And their immediate needs are very simple. They need food, they need shelter, they need some help figuring out what to do next after they've crossed the border. But most of all, they need to know that we care. On the Ukrainian border, I saw that we've helped to set up a temporary shelter in a nearby football stadium. We've got tents, we've got heaters, and we've got food. And we need heaters because it's really cold there this time of year. It's well below freezing. I want to tell you the story of a child I met on Tuesday. This is 10-year-old Sasha. He'd spent the last few days living in a basement in Kyiv, and he didn't want to come out. After a long, difficult journey, he made it to the border with his mum, Valentina. Sasha told me that he really didn't want to leave his country or his basement. Sasha's left his dad behind, his friends behind, and his school behind, and he just wants to return. But they don't know when this can happen. But above all, Sasha and his family just want peace. These children's voices must be heard as we push for a diplomatic solution. We call for and pray for a miracle of peace. In the meantime, we must do all we can to support their immediate needs. And we need your help to do that. We have local World Vision staff on the ground across the whole region. And all the DEC partners need your financial support to meet the basic immediate needs of these people from Ukraine. We really can make a huge difference. Right now, we can bring hope. We have the people on the ground. We just need more financial support. We can dry Sasha's tears, not only now, but for the future, with your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for sharing with us those stories. And now from Moldova, I'd like to introduce Titania Sorokin, who has been Country Director at Help Age International in Moldova since 2009, leading a support a diverse program of support for older people in the country. Help Age is supported by DEC member Age International. Titania, can I come to you to give us an oversight of the situation, please? Titania, can you hear us? Apologies about the technical difficulties. Can I just ask one of the team in the back to come and take this laptop? It might be the ones creating the problem. Thank you.
Hello, yes, thank you for this opportunity to be here at this important conference today. I am based in Moldova, and Moldova has now become a transit country, but also a hosting country for refugees. And Moldova is now bearing the echo of war unleashed by Russia on 24th February. Moldova is a strip of land between two countries, sandwiched between Romania and Ukraine, and refugees are coming from the eastern border on Ukraine and exiting and transiting on the opposite side, the western border, to Romania. In this way, the country has become a shadow battlefield with the smell of war, people and cars moving around, some people crying, other people just sad. In just hours, Moldovan government has been able to organize some support to the refugees, and 67 centers, protection centers, have been reprofiled to refugee centers where they found accommodation, food, necessary assistance with their basic needs. I visited the civil center yesterday, and I met several families, all with children, and one with a newly born children of just 2 weeks, and a 93-year-old woman, the grandmother, and 75-year-old woman, the mother of the younger woman. And they managed to speak about their situation. They said that they are now lucky to be here in Moldova because Odessa and Voznesensk are now ruined. And they said they worry about their families and their parents who stayed at home back in Ukraine. They also said that they are uncertain about the future. They are distressed about the war and don't know where to go next. What is their next destination? They don't know. We worry about the future, they said, and we worry about food and clothing for our families because they may not have anything to eat tomorrow, they said. The biggest needs that they all now have are related to longer-term accommodation, the money, lack of money that is draining actually fast, the problems with ID cards and passports of children in particular, as they don't have them, and the possibility to find a job. On top of that, they are distressed and they need psychological counseling and legal counseling, in particular children and older persons. Moldova is the poorest country in Europe, where older persons receive a small pension that barely covers the consumer basket. And now Moldova suddenly has to cope with the situation with the refugees, and they don't know how to do it. They don't have enough resources. Help Age International is supporting, with support of Age International, is supporting the refugee centers and all other interventions in Moldova. We are doing food and non-food items. We support refugees with cash benefits and other things. We do counseling sessions. We reassured the refugees that we will get help to them quickly through people in Europe who have big hearts and through donations. And we would appreciate any support and donations provided to the refugees to help them live through this war and return home safely or settle in another place of their destination. Their support is needed every day, and Moldova cannot provide all the support. We are here to cover these gaps that Moldovan government and the whole country cannot provide. Thank you very much for your big hearts and for your support.
Thank you, Titania, and thank you to your team for everything that you're doing during these difficult times. We now can open the floor for questions. Hopefully we'll also be able to take some questions online, but we'll open the floor first to people in the room. Are there any questions? Okay. Can you just introduce yourself? And
It's Sarah Campbell, BBC. Sarah Campbell, BBC. Could you explain exactly how the best way people can help? Because we know that locally people are feeling that they want to do everything they can. They are sort of donating medicines, clothes. How best can the people in Ukraine and those leaving Ukraine be helped?
thank you, Sarah, for the question. I'll respond to that, and then I'll allow my colleagues also to respond. The best way people can help is to donate to the likes of the DEC, funds which will go to provide food, water, medicine, blankets and the like. There's plenty of aid in the region. We will not be looking to ship or transport aid from the UK. The most effective aid is going to be delivered locally, and the funds are needed to buy that aid locally, which is more relevant to the people of Ukraine and those fleeing Ukraine. Bethan, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, sure. And it's been incredible to see the really generous outpouring of support across the UK public. What I would say is that to echo Salih's sentiment, the best thing that people can do now is to donate to things like the DEC appeal. What people need today might not be what they need tomorrow, and by supporting the appeal, they can support through flexible funds, and agencies working on the ground can adapt their responses depending on the needs that emerge over the coming weeks, but also coming months.
Andrew, do you want to add to that?
Yes, when I was at the border, a van turned up that was full of second-hand coats that had travelled halfway across Europe, and that's just not what people needed on the ground. People had come prepared for the cold, but they had no accommodation and they had no money for food. So it is absolutely financial support that they need right now.
Thank you both. Gentleman at the back.
Financial Times. Have you set a specific target for how much money you would like to raise, ideally? I think the campaign's been going for a day, so can you tell us what the sort of how much money you've raised in the first 24 hours or so? And given that the British government has an annual budget of £842 billion, do you think their match funding of £20 million is sufficient, or would you hope that they might raise that as the months or weeks go by? Thank you.
Thank you. The UN has estimated the humanitarian response plan is $1.5 million. So I think that shows the scale. Sorry, 1.5 billion. Thank you for correcting me. 1.5 billion. So I think that shows the scale of the humanitarian need and the growing need. Also, the UN is fearing that up to 4 million people will flee Ukraine, and further 7 million people will be displaced inside Ukraine. So I think that gives a scale of the crisis that we're all facing. The DEC has not set a target because we are absolutely generous and grateful for every single pound that the British public will give. Of course, the more generous and the more money we raise, the more people that we can reach. We're also grateful to the UK government for the UK Aid Match scheme. That money, up to £20 million, will help further the aid effort. It is the largest UK aid match that the DEC has received in recent memory, and we would urge the public to give, especially during the UK aid match, because their funds will be doubled by the UK government. Thank you. We will make an announcement about that tomorrow. We're still collecting the figures. The actual launch day of the appeal is today. We do know that people have been very, very keen and have already started to donate as of yesterday, but we will announce an official figure for the appeal tomorrow. Thank you. Are there any other questions? Do we have any questions online?
There's no questions online.
Great. Okay. Of course, thank you for the reminder. Right, so tonight we have TV appeals that will be presented by Adrian Lester on the BBC and Kit Harrington on ITV, Channel 4, 5 and Sky. And David Tennant will also be presenting radio appeals. So please watch out for those. They may be available to you to preview ahead of those being shown on TV and radio. So to wrap up, as I mentioned, there will be opportunities to have one-to-one interviews with any of the panel members. The unfolding crisis is horrific and heartbreaking, and the grim reality is that it's likely to get worse. But there is something that we can all do to bring hope. We can make a difference to support the people of Ukraine. We can help, and we can help today. Please donate and help us raise funds to support the hundreds of thousands of people already fleeing, only with the things that they carry, things like suitcases and nothing more. You can donate at dec.org.uk. The British media can play a vital role in spreading the word. Please do what you can in helping us reach the generous British public to raise funds for the people of Ukraine. Thank you again for your time and support. Thank you. So if anybody wants to do any one-to-one interviews, we can happily arrange those. Thank you all very much for coming today.